kind of education I got. I was a film and graphic design major, but I also majored in cannabis and psilocybin, which, to this day are two very big guys in my life. But fortunately, after graduating from college, it was shipped off to London. That's what this slide is. I'm a dickhead in a hat, taking off my clothes, and then the rest is kind of the European crew. And let me get a better slide. And I was the only American in a studio of like 25 Europeans, right? Like fresh off the boat from California, total hippie. Had a Swedish roommate who was very sweet, and really great designer too. And really kind of went had a good education at Humboldt, but really got boot camp style in Europe, and really learned a lot about biggest influences were like Designers Republic and the early attic work. And I really got into this kind of deconstructivist graphic design style, and started publishing my own weird websites. And so this is back in 2000. So this is back in like kind of the heyday of the dot-com explosion, when everything on the internet was super interesting and new, and people would delve into Flash experiments for hours looking for a password, and people don't do that shit anymore. But back in the day they did. So just doing these weird personal sites, and kind of I loved little figurines. I love little toys and wind-up toys and little figurines. So I'd always kind of feature those as like the mascot of the website, and then make an interface on top of it. Obviously love monkeys. And so I made a website about monkeys, and then moved to New York after my whole London exhibition, and met this dude. And this guy's Mandingo. And Mandingo and I made a website, of course, where he was you could touch him, and he would do his poses. And it turned out Mandingo was quite an excellent dancer. And so made this little piece with Mandingo. Pretty great. Just told the guy, just said, show up in a muscle suit. I'll put my little hat on you, and play some Dexter, and let's see what happens. And he kind of rocked it out. It's actually an interactive QuickTime where you can control the speed of him, and there's a little camera on the right that inspects his package. Because it is wonderful. Here's a better shot of it. It's a gift. Yeah. And also I'm into wind-up toys, and we'll get more on that later, but I wanted to throw this in there. This is for no reason, and I had a job where it was about this music, and I had these wind-up toys. I had like this little rabbit, and this little pig, and the squirrel and the little acorn, and I was like, it'd be awesome if they would just start having sex with each other, because when you wind them up, they would kind of do these gyrations. I was like, all right, well, so this is my attempt at that. Establishment, and then it go. Alright, birth music. That's what it was about. Okay, let's talk about graphic design for a second. In terms of where I started as a graphic designer, was really into kind of 3D architectural geometry and kind of flat shading it. So it didn't really have a lot of shading and contour and depth. It became kind of a flat graphic, but with that technique, you could make very detailed work that way, and kind of would put grid theory on top of that, and do some type. And this is kind of early days, like old school graphic design explosion from the early 2000s. Did a lot of this kind of work, and then got more into 3D and started to study how rendering techniques, beautiful reflections, and whatever else, playing with type in 3D, and super infatuated with prisms and putting Dobermans inside prisms. But and again, didn't always want to be a high-tech designer, so got into kind of like Photoshop montaging, making machines or weird scenes. This is all just random stills from some forever ago and up to today. But taking Photoshop and taking pictures of everything and making machines or monkey machines. I love monkeys. That's where GMUNK comes from. Is it's all about the Monkowitz. And then kind of going more filmic. Smoke dragons attacking babies, or smoke ravens attacking babies. Football explosions, and Terminators, and raining whales over cars, beard logos, chest logos, more monkeys. I like to draw a lot. I draw a lot of penises and monkeys, basically. Although I have been expanding my repertoire a little bit. I'm kind of like the kid in Superbad. Do you guys know Superbad? Like him. But when I need to focus on work, I'll draw characters and develop cool little wrestler characters and make them in 3D, and they'll smash each other and you know, be fights and smash each other. Love clowns, love type, clear, and then I also love op art. This is kind of my new obsession. This kind of goes back to psilocybin, I suppose. Really love op art and making really kind of graphic tunnels in space. And I'm kind of going through a space theme right now. You'll see it later on. I'm obsessed with space and galactic travel. And so this is kind of the new thing I'm really into is do I actually make these in 3D, which is really nice to use procedural textures, and kind of like all these line work is actually completely procedural, so you can make a lot of detail pretty easily. Yeah, so it's cool. Anyway, so I also do a lot of graphic design, UI work, and so this is the kind of stuff that got Joseph Kosinski as the director of Tron Legacy and of this new Tom Cruise film that I'm also working on. But this is how he noticed me for my graphic design work. He wasn't as impressed with some of my other, monkeys or. And so he invited me. Like I said, I met him at a conference, and we were on the same panel. And he saw my work, and he queued me up for this Hummer job where he just needed. Basically, it's a story about an ADD kid, and he's playing a video game, and he's just like customizing his dream Hummer. So it's it's just a kid on steroids, and he wanted me to do this UI, and everything's just crazy fast. It kind of fit into kind of the pace I like to do. So this is that piece. So that was our first collaboration on this Hummer job, which leads us to Tron Legacy and Lo-Fi. So Joe takes me into this meeting, this kind of serious meeting in Culver Studios, Disney plot, whatever. And I sit down and he's like, okay, so he shows me this video. He shows me this 8-minute video. And this is all previs footage from Digital Domain, who's the production company that did all the effects on the movie. And he shows me this 8-minute long clip, and I've sped it up. Basically, this is all. He's like, you're in charge of all the graphics for these sequences. And I'm watching this thing, and there's obviously I sped up a bit because it's through it. It seems like a lot of work. I'm like, all right, no problem. And then this one, sure, okay, and then this one, yeah, it's that one, that's cool. And okay, cool, that one. And elevator panels, and this hologram thing here. It's like, oh shit, it's a lot of work, Joe. It's cool, thanks. And he's like, so what do you think? He's like, I think we need to build a team for this. Little Black Ops team. So I built a Black Ops team. So you guys get the idea. There's a lot of shit. Time goes on forever. Here's my Black Ops team. So we got me, we got Jake Sargent, who's like a really nice guy. Really sweet guy. Really good graphic designer. Lewandowski with the Corgi. He's kind of like the master cinema 4D animator, like MoGraph master. And then we got Josh Nimoy, the dude looking down. He's a code artist. I started working with code artists on a Comcast spot before Tron, so I was really getting into the code art. It's kind of like graphic steroids. It's just the density. It's really powerful. And then the last dude is Adam Swab, who really high-end Houdini artist. Houdini's kind of like the effects software they use in all the big films, or explosions and smoke and everything else. So that's the team. This is 5 of us. We roll into Digital Domain. We park in the corner, and everyone's like, "What the fuck? These guys are all using Macs. It's weird, Everyone at Digital Domain's kind of, they're looking at us, and we're kind of just like bouncing, we're kind of, it was fun. It was fun. It was a really good exposure to the visual effects industry. It's pretty intense, actually. Thankful I'm a designer. Oh, that wasn't nice. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's talk about the first task. Tron Disc Game. Disc Game was one of my favorite things in the original. I love the original. I fucking love the original. So this whole thing is kind of surreal. It's just like, we actually got asked to do the titles, and it was just like the most terrifying thing I've ever done. It was actually the first time I was stressed out ever working. But I don't know if I have time to show you. I might show you. But first task was Disc Game. And so the way I always start a project, and this is so important, is I just start collecting reference. And I'm really, really good about image cataloging and categorizing my reference and just being really, really ninja about it. You wouldn't think that I'm a very organized person, but I actually am really, really overly organized, especially with reference. And so I started looking at the original, and my favorite part from the original was how the disc courts kind of form and break down. And they do that with this cool kind of arcing, these arc lights kind of come and they'll res on the courts and they'll res them off. So I was really inspired by that. And then just, looking at some of the little touches in the film, dot grids and light lines, obviously, how the light would travel on graphic lines. It's just such a dense graphic design, achievement, especially for the time. And so really wanted to kind of carry on that and just modernize it slightly, but not go in a completely different language. Wanted to kind of keep it straight, So also started looking at, thinking about how the scoreboard was going to be this giant circular structure above the courts, which is really cool because the graphics graphics are always kind of like the last tier in a VFX film because they don't really they're always on screen, they don't really do much. But this graphic was actually lighting the courts, and so the lights we were going to design would actually be the sole light source for the courts and all the refractions and reflections. So kind of awesome challenge coming up with kind of a scheme for that. So started really studying arcs and really thinking about the 3D space, and then love Feltron. Feltron's one of my favorite graphic designers in the world. Nicholas Felton is his real name, and he publishes the annual reports. He's really good with type and kind of the techie design aesthetic. And so taking in all that reference and with the team, this is the design we arrived at. As you can see, kind of the lights are in 4 quadrants lighting the courts. And the brackets were tricky because it had to be, the matches had to update. So the brackets actually had to slide on each other and then update to the second round. So I was trying to figure out what's the best way to do that, and kind of came up with this design here that could overlap easily. They slide on each other and update the brackets. How's the thing going to form? With lasers, though. Little HUDs.